Many Americans say they can't afford as many presents this holiday season thanks to inflation, but that is not stopping Congress from going on a monster spending spree with your hard-earned taxpayer money. The $1.7 trillion spending bill that Congress is trying to ram through before the Christmas holiday is more than 4,000 pages long and filled with some eye-popping pet projects, including $3.6 million for the Michelle Obama Trail in Georgia, another $1.3 million allocated for a study on the recommendation for alcohol in the upcoming dietary guidelines. The bill also makes available for a whopping $65 million for restoring the Pacific salmon population. There's a $3 million outlay for bee-friendly roadsides and highways. Senator Rand Paul blasted all that spending using a holiday rhyme to make his point. Watch this.
'Twas the week before Christmas, and through the Senate and House, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The earmarks were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The senators were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of pork danced in their heads. No budget was found, just mischief and debt, while the taxpayers hung their poor heads and wept.
David, what is more outrageous, the size of this or the fact that Congress is pushing this giant omnibus bill through before the new Congress takes charge, before the Republican-controlled House takes charge in January?
It's not an either or. They're both horrible. Think about this. They drop a bill. They go to 2 a.m., they come back in the morning, they add some more things. Nobody's read this thing. I interviewed Senator Marshall on this. He voted no, by the way. A lot of turncoat Republicans voted yes on this bill without reading it. And he said even if you had a team of 20 people breaking it down, staffers, you couldn't read and comprehend the bill. And they're jamming this through because if the Republicans come in, then they can get back maybe under McCarthy or whoever the new incoming speaker is, probably McCarthy, and to some sort of regular order. There are 12 key appropriations here. They're important. The Michelle Obama Trail in Georgia, I don't care. Somebody raise the money, give it to them. Call some donor. Salmon, not a necessary appropriation. Bees, roadside highways, are they going to put up signs for the bees? I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about it that fiscal responsibility is gone. These are a bunch of amoral elitists like Richard Shelby from Alabama, a Republican who wants to go out and spend, what, $600 million on his own pet project. I don't care who they are, all 5 of us, all the people watching, all the people working in the studio, you're going to pay this bill.
I'm going to go to Leslie on this because I've been talking about this even last year. Republicans are part of the problem. And I'll start with Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and Mitt Romney, that they co-signed, and I'm not going to, take the microphone and hold the floor the rest of this segment, but they co-signed onto over $1.2 trillion in new spending under the Democrats. The infrastructure bill, they signed onto it, voted yay. The semiconductor boondoggle voted yay. And they have voted in favor of this. And Mitch McConnell's talking about how proud he is. And Richard Shelby is out the door, and he's walking away with the most earmarks, $656 million in parting gifts for this old boys club over in the Senate. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It's all shameful because it's on our backs.
I agree with you a little bit, made me tingle when you said Republicans are...
It is.
But this is the problem. I don't like pork. I don't care if it's a Democrat doing it, a Republican doing it, because it takes away from the necessities in this bill. Let's look at it. You're avoiding a government shutdown. You're cutting money from the IRS. Woohoo! And in addition to that, you have things that are so beneficial for veterans, for homeless, for affordable housing, to reduce inflation, to help Ukraine, to help our own military. The list goes on. And that's what bothers me, because
the 12 appropriations. Where is it in the 12 appropriations?
No, David, they are there. And by the way, in addition to that, when she talks about Republicans, the preliminary vote was over 70. It was over 70 to 25, right? It was 70-25, just the preliminary vote. So they got the votes, and you only have 51 or 50 right now Democrats. So you have certainly a good number of the Senate Republicans that are agreeing with this, and we're going to see the same thing in the House. And this happens time and time again. Everybody wants to bring money home to their district, money home to their state, and that's why you have Democrats and Republicans adding all this pork, and it's bad because it puts a bigger price tag on the legislation, it takes away from the tax dollar, and it takes away from the good stuff, and there's a lot of good stuff in the bill.
There's a farce in this, however, and I got to throw this in. The 2% reduction for the IRS, when they already did what they did in the inflation, the falsely named Inflation Reduction Act, is a joke. You give $119 billion to the VA. I think everyone knows where I stand on this issue. But if you don't have a system that works correctly across the VA and a failed Secretary McDonough, you're not applying it to updating, to getting veterans through their appointments. They're throwing money because it gets a Republican vote in, because it sounds good and they all feel good while they use veterans for props. They're not fixing the system.
Lauren, one of the issues that the Wall Street Journal editorial board talks about in the editorial titled "The Ugliest Omnibus Bill Ever" is that it says it's worse, not just the size of it. The Democrats have failed in their duty to pass normal spending bills. They also add major policy changes that should have been broken out as separate votes, but couldn't pass by themselves, from health care to presidential election rules, even the banning of TikTok on government devices, even regulating the beauty industry through the FDA.
Yep. This was done by design, knowing that they couldn't get all of that passed in standalone votes. So do what you always do. Just lump it all together in this major omnibus spending package and jam it down people's throats a couple of days before Christmas. There is another option. The third option would be to pass a continuing resolution and just deal with it in a couple of days, deal with it in January when you have the new Republican Congress coming in. But the other thing is, we're dealing with inflation, struggling to pay our Christmas gifts right now and pay our holiday bills. This is inflationary. And as interest rates go up and up and up, the cost to finance our $30 trillion debt, that goes up too, hundreds of billions of dollars annually. It's just money that we don't have, and it's being jam-packed down our throats at a time when inflation is a major, major problem. Record inflation. Record spending, record inflation. They just don't go together, but apparently they do.
Well, Dagan, I'm going to say something that's not as eloquent as Lauren, but this is a big slap in the face to the American people. And I'm going to break it down to some of the...
curse. I would curse. I'm this close.
I mean, I try. So first of all, that $3 million Michelle Obama trail, and David was saying they should fundraise for it. Someone else should pay for it other than the tax dollars. Do you know who should pay for it? I don't know. Michelle Obama made about $35 million on her 2019 book, and former President Obama, I think it's estimated, got a $65 million advance. They have a production company. They have a Netflix special. They do speaking engagements. Maybe she should pay for her own trail. And that $1.5 million for the alcohol study, save your money. Everything in moderation. There's no amount of alcohol that is healthy for you. We don't have to study to say how much shouldn't have. You probably shouldn't have any, but if you're going to, everything in moderation. And in this bill, they're talking about tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to the CDC, the NIH, and the FBI, all of whom are going to be under investigation in 2023 for misdoings over the last couple of years. Perhaps before we start giving them even more money, we need to hold them accountable for some of the things that they've already done and say spending is contingent on these problems being fixed.
I just want to point out that we have a medical professional opinion saying it's okay for us to drink over the holidays. Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
I
Feel better.
If they keep doing this in Washington, we're going to need that alcohol.
Can't be any
For
different.
decades.
But I
They've been
can't
doing it
afford
whether
the
it's
alcohol.
Democrat or Republican in power.
I've
Look,
gone to cocktail at a New York City bar recently, or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah, look, a pox on both houses on this. Kudos to the Republicans in the Senate who voted against it, but what's missing here is the thing they'll never change in Washington. Too much power in the Speaker's office and in the Majority Leader's office. The committees are not involved. 12 appropriations should be dealt with by the committees, regular order. That's why they won't give it to us, because then you might have fiscal responsibility.
Let me add one thing. Mitch McConnell said that the reason that the Republicans did not do well in the midterms was candidate quality. Mitch McConnell was one of 19 Republican senators that voted in favor of the infrastructure bill, inflationary, along with Lindsey Graham and Mitt Romney. He was one of 17 Republican senators who voted for the semiconductor boondoggle, which helped lead to the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. So he was part and parcel getting behind and voting yes for inflationary spending. He co-signed on $1.3 trillion in new non-defense spending at a time that inflation was running at a 40-year high. And then you have the audacity to blame candidates for the reason that Republicans didn't do well. It is your leadership. And you're doing again and saying you're proud of putting this omnibus spending bill together.
We need to ditch Mitch in a nutshell.
It's the Screw You America bill. And it's straight from the Republicans and the Democrats. And Richard Shelby, Michelle Obama is not in the Senate and not in the House. And Richard Shelby, this is James Bovard in the New York Post. Senator Richard Shelby is also getting his name on an FBI training facility. Almost everything in Alabama already has his name on it. He's getting more than $650 million in earmarks in this, and he's retiring. Never seen a going away president like that.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.